All right, come from the doorway too, hanging out with Jeroen, as us English folks call him, from I think it's Alkerdeel is the way is said. If I'm butchering that too, you let me know. But uh,
All good.
is that all right? Awesome. Appreciate you doing this. Got about a 9 hour difference in time, so my morning, your night. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you very much. Go ahead. So anyway, like I said, I guess the first question I'm going to ask is, so I dug back on kind of the last three records, the full length records that you've done, because this last record, Slonk, really kind of interested me. Like I kind of really dug the elements that were in it. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about each record, and I'm going to start with pretty much the the last one that I listened to, which is I guess it's Maureen. Is that how you say it? I'm not sure if that's
I
pronounced correct.
I think that's a bit harder to pronounce if you're not Dutch. It's pronounced morende. Uh,
Maureen.
it's a dialect word, and even now I am pronouncing it um, too gently. Because it's a dialect word. It's more in mouth than, but morende. And actually, that's the re-release of our second album.
Oh, perfect. All right. So that's the first one I got to listen to. So I that very much. So I want to kind of talk about that one because when I listen to that one versus Slonk, the differences that I hear is there's a lot more kind of sludgy kind of atmosphere on it,
Mhm.
and I'd say it's more like kind of black noise. Like there's a lot of noisy elements in it too. Where we'll talk about the new record, but I think the new record's way more layered. When you made that release, uh,
Mhm.
was that something you were going for? More of that kind of sludgy, noisier kind of black metal sound?
That's correct, as it's the album. After it, I won't say abandoned the sludge influences, but we started to incorporate different genres. When we started out in the beginning, our aim really was to mix sludge and black metal, like bands like I Hate God, Corrupted, with Norwegian bands like Ildjarn or Darkthrone or Beherit from Finland, like the real raw stuff. That was exactly what we were trying to do because it was 2005 and nothing like this mixture was really happening. In the US, of course, there must have been bands. I think Unearthly Trance was also in that corner, like the more sludgy stuff mixed with older battery or something. But I think in the end of the 2000s, more bands starting doing it, but we hadn't heard from it before. And because in Belgium, what you could hear was bands, if you talk about black metal bands, they were more influenced by Dark Funeral or Marduk, which isn't really our thing. Totally not. And instead of when we went to gigs, we were always complaining and we said, we should start doing it ourselves. And it was really for ourselves. We were three people, it was in a garage, we didn't have any intention, and we started just jamming sludge riffs mixed with this primitive kind of black metal. So that's correct what you said, because Morende was like, I think we had tried everything within that frame that was possible for us or interesting for us. And we listened to a lot of music, different metal genres, but also other stuff, noise music, some electronic music, everything. And we thought, and it went naturally to bringing more stuff and not to limit ourselves to the sludgy stuff. What remained to this day is not, if you talk about sludge or something, I also think about, for example, Burning Witch, which is
Okay.
more sludge doom. it's not the slow, how do you call it, tempo, the slow pace, but it's the sound. It's like the massive sound, like the bass, lots of bass, a low sound, the way, for example, Steve Albini records albums, a very live sound. This is still present in the music and very important, but not really like the way guitars are played or the riffs are played. That's something,
Sure.
it can come back, but now we're like focused to other things. In
Of
short.
course. Yeah. No, and that's what I was going to kind of say is that record kind of had like that big black Steve Albini kind of vibe to it, where it
Yeah.
was like sludgy but noisy. And yeah, I Hate God was a reference I was going to make. There was a couple other bands like I don't know if you know who Newthrush is. They're from San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of elements of that in that
Mhm.
record, which was very
Exactly.
cool, which was very different than the next record, which I heard, which I'm gonna butcher the name, I'm sure too. But is it like Leaded? Is that how you say it?
Almost there.
Oh,
Later.
okay, perfect. So that's the first time I really hear you guys again, like you said, move away from the sludgier sound and
Hmm.
move more to like a noise rock meets true raw black metal. So like I can actually hear those elements of like I can hear the Dark Thrones. I can hear the Burzums. I can hear those elements mixed in much stronger. Was there was there an absolute growth to that direction for that record?
Um, in between, there was also the collaboration we did with Maurice from Know Their Tongues. And there we really took the drone and the sludge to the limit. And also in that very, it's a very long song, what also hinted the direction we were going. It was more like the black metal had always been present, but the tempo went up, and that was something we're still in the same vibe, I think. Um, and so I can say that the collaboration with Maurice was like you know the point of I don't know in English the word, where everything changes, or let's
Okay.
close this thing, move on. Also, it wasn't totally conscious, but a little bit, because we just do what we do. Like for the new album, we wanted to make a very slow album, and it's maybe the fastest we did. So we don't really work on decisions, but maybe a little bit on this one, because we were mostly pushed in the corner. And I think I have said it really or many times, like I do not really agree with what most people now think of sludge. I have
Yeah.
a totally other definition. Nowadays, people, when they speak about sludge, they speak about bands like Cult of Luna or Amun Ra or something. All good. Those bands doesn't offend me. I respect them. I have albums of them. But that's not the thing. When I think about sludge, I think about what you said, for example, Nude Crush, Corrupted, these kinds of bands.
Yep.
And so we're on a label who's more into this post metal kind of stuff. So people were pushing us into the corner, and it was like, no, that's not us. Let's just quit it and move on and incorporate the other elements. Just like do our thing and not in the corner of the tag that is above our head.
That's
Um,
fun.
but yeah, it's not that we let her sleep for it, but I tend to mention it a lot in interviews.
No, and that's what I was going to kind of go into next, which is kind of funny. I was going to say Consoling Sounds is very much a post metal kind of
Yeah,
label. So
exactly.
when you just mentioned Code of Luna and stuff, that's all I think of. That's post metal. That's not
Yes.
sludge to me in any way, shape, or form. People mix it so much because of the tempo. I don't think so much the tone. Post metal and sludge are kind of like brother and sister in a really kind of
Yeah.
incestuous way. And that's a sad thing that people don't hear those old NOLA bands or those San Francisco bands
Yeah.
or those Japanese sludge bands that like were so heavy and so powerful. And I like I've been lucky enough to see those bands live, and it
Mm-hmm.
literally hurts when you go see them live because it's so low and
Mm-hmm.
so heavy. It's like when I went to see Earth for the very first time. Like it was so like it was before they started doing the more post rock thing, and it
Mm-hmm.
was during like the Earth 2 period, and it was so bludgeoningly heavy that like I literally had to go to the back of the room. That's the kind of sludge element you guys had.
Yeah, that's totally what we have in mind too. I totally, yeah, I'm with you on that.
All
But
right, awesome.
something it's also something which happens a lot in black metal, that people have other definitions and some people get upset by it. But I think that's how, things go. It evolves, and you can't have it in your hands. But sometimes when you're talking about music, I think it's still relevant just to point out the differences um, between the two things, just to make it on a nerdy way historically or musically correct. Um,
No, for,
I also think that a band like Neurosis, which I really like, was an important factor why people get confused by it. Because
yeah.
albums like Through Silver and Blood or something, it's like already on the edge, but still more to the, let's say, the right way of sludge, or the
Right.
definition we follow. While what they're doing afterwards, Times of Grace, maybe still it's a bit in the gray zone, but most of the albums afterwards are exactly the influences, or in that area that you might call nowadays post metal or something. I'm told, when I'm drunk, I get angry about those mixtures, but if I'm sober, I can just be, yeah, that's how things go.
Yeah, and I agree with you fully. So I'm gonna say like the difference between post metal and sludge to me, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here on that kind of conversation, is the atmosphere. Like
Yeah.
if you take the atmosphere out, it's sludge. If you throw all that atmosphere in, it becomes post metal, and that's exactly what Neurosis did
Hmm.
after Times of Grace. Like they became very atmospheric. I absolutely agree. I
Hmm.
kind of want to talk a little bit about the new record, Slonk, because
Okay.
to me, takes in ultimate praise because this is me praising what a like you added the elements of my favorite noise rock bands in the world on this record. And what I'm
Okay.
talking about is those old and rep bands like Jesus Lizard, The
Hmm.
Cows, Hammerhead. Like you put all that and then you threw it in to the most raw, pissed off black metal elements that you could possibly have. So it reminds me of that like second wave of Scandinavian black metal, like when if melody was in it, they got pissed off. Like they literally got mad. Like if you
Hmm.
mix those two elements together, and then what you do on this record as well too, is you say screw it all too, and then throw these really cool ambient atmospheres on top of it, which
Hmm.
is like it shouldn't work, but it does. And so I kind of wanted to ask, like, when you were making this record, did you have like three different focal ideas of what you wanted to do? Because on this is the first record that I've heard from you guys
Hmm.
where it literally sounds like there's different pieces of the record. I know the songs are really long, but
Hmm.
each song kind of has like it'll have an ambient part. It'll have a rock part. Was that done on purpose?
Hmm. It's hard to say. It's a difficult question because actually we don't think that much about it. But of course, we listen a lot to the things we do, and like what does the music need or something. But it's not something we know in advance, because if you would hear the songs in their first phases and then the result, sometimes it can be totally different. Something we did had in mind while composing was that we, for the first time, we wanted to make real songs. Before, it was just like this stream of consciousness or let the music flow. Like, for example, the album of Mayhem, Order at How, it's not with a chorus or and then go back or something. It's just also this stream. That's something we have been doing since the beginning. And now we thought, just to make it interesting for us too, because at one part we mostly when writing an album, there's this period we have this kind of writing block, that we have a cool part or a nice part and then, but what should we do next? And then we're working on it, throw it away, and it can be take months and months. And of course we were in this again with this album, and instead of again having this stream or working towards the stream, we thought maybe for once we should focus on the song, because these songs were developing or evolving in that way. And that was something we consciously did, like, let's make songs. But to say like it needs this part and it has to go to this part, I think that's something we do because we learned to do it, or that's our style or became our style. We need, like, it would be more of an impact if this part will go to more like this drone thing or something. You know, I think that's a bit of an explanation, but it's not
Perfect.
really something we have in mind when we start this song needs this. It's just actually we start, the drummer and the guitar player start to play or to jam, and then the bass player and me come in after a few weeks when we rehearse together and just listen, oh, what will this do, which part is interesting, and then we start playing it and, you know, constructing, bit like a sculpture. You know, you have this rough piece and try to make something from it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Something which I really liked in your description was, for example, the influence of bands like the Jesus Lizard. Our guitar player has a really wide taste, and although myself, I have one Jesus Lizard record, but it's an influence that we're not aware of it. So it's really nice that you hear these influences in it, because maybe it comes from somewhere different. Other bands that we like, maybe they were influenced by, for example, the Jesus Lizard. So I understand what you mean, but it's not something we're aware of. But I think it's
Okay.
interesting.
Perfect. No, yeah. And I do hear a lot of that. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the vocals too, because
Okay.
to me, they're really interesting. And they're not, so they're extreme, of course, but they almost have a odd melody to them. Like it's not just screaming for the sake of screaming. Like
Mm-hmm.
the emotion hits the tone of what the guitars and the bass are playing.
Yeah.
When you write the lyrics, do you kind of try and sing tonally to what they're playing? Because it almost feels like that's happening, especially on this record.
Um, no, not at all. Because the lyrics are mostly written after the music, especially for this album. And when we rehearse, I mostly sing like phonetically. That's like also something from our past when we were just a jam band. It was gibberish what I was doing. And I used to do it on a lot of albums because that was something that felt best to me. But for this album, I really felt I needed lyrics to make it work. But I actually I don't think about it. It just comes out like what I feel with the music. Um, I like with a normal voice, I can't sing at all. I sing off key, and even my screaming voice is not a good voice. I have the baddest technique that's you can have as a singer, um, because I ruin my voice, and there's these singers who can tour with it and do whatever they want. For me, no, not at all. I can do 2 nights or something, and then I can't speak for a week or so. It's a really bad technique. So in that way, of course, I know what I'm doing, but it's like if it was just screaming, it would be boring, of course. And in that way, maybe I follow the guitar lines. I really don't know. It's like when playing live too, I'm in this zone and it just comes out. Um, and there are parts that, for example, from the rehearsals that are fixed, which are in my mind or that have been reworked, but a lot of things change during the recording session because you're under pressure. It's also another, mostly when we rehearse, it's an evening, but while we record, it's during the day, which also has an influence. And you want to do the best, so it can change a lot because things come out because you're so in another mindset. But yeah, I also know the influences I have, for example, while singing, are totally different than just only the pure screaming ones. There's this mix of genres too, like the Burning Witch singer is a huge influence. The singer from In the Woods, it's a Norwegian band, but the early albums, he screams through the lines, so like more of an instrument, which has a huge impact on me. And then also Aldran from Dudham's Guard, for example, he has this more, although he's a black metal singer, he's like, I don't know what kind of voice he has. It's not only it's not a grunt or a scream, it's like more a evil tough guy voice. And that's also something which I incorporate. So all those elements make what I do, I think. It's only three. Of course, there are more, and I have my own thing too. But I think this makes that there's a lot of variation that it goes with the music, I think.
That's no, and that's funny because I was going to mention a couple of singers that kind of seemed like they were big influences to you,
Yeah,
and Damensgaard was one of them because like especially like on like the earlier records,
yeah,
especially I can hear a lot of your vocal being the same. The other one, which may be totally out of line, uh, but and because it's a female singer, but it's Oathbreaker. Like the vocalist from Oathbreaker and you have a
hmm,
very similar. So I think she would tell me the same thing you just told me. Like I'm the world's worst clean singer, but like the way I do it works for this band because
yeah,
it's just haunting. And that's what I was gonna say is like when you do get less screamy, it becomes kind of very haunting and eerie.
hmm,
So like it works really well for this kind of music. So awesome.
yeah,
All right, cool. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is, and I'm not politically correct, so I curse up a storm sometimes. So just be prepared for it. Your fucking album covers are so bizarre. Like they are beyond bizarre. Like I look at them, and if I looked at that record, every time I went in the store as a kid, I'm an older guy. I'm 48, so I'm from
hmm,
the world going to CD shops, tapes, vinyl, and picking up an album and being like, okay, I don't know what this sounds like, but I have to buy it because it's the weirdest goddamn album cover I've ever seen. That's what you would do to me. Like, what is up with these album covers? How do they tie into what you want musically, like, presenting as a band?
Well, what you're saying. So, do I understand correct that you took the album just because of the cover?
So this Slonk record, I
Yeah.
literally listened to it because I looked at the album cover and I was like, that is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. Why the hell not listen to it?
Yeah, that's something I used to do as a kid too, because I'm also from it, so you're also from the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm also from the 70s. Only 7 days, but I'm from the south. So, but I know what you mean, like going to browsing through the shelves and stuff. And I did it a lot because when I was a kid, there was no internet. I only had few friends who were into music. I came from, I live nearby a city, but Belgium has small cities, but a small village. So I went to the how do you call this? It's not like a library, but where you could hire movies, and you could also hire CDs and even vinyls, something like this. And I just took things because of the cover, because I was 12. I was listening to Maiden, AC/DC, and what the hell did I know? I just took things that looked uh, dark or even more weird. Um, I've always have had an interest in, of course, things that were dark, but maybe more in things that were weird. Maybe it has something to do with my dad. He was a film, a movie journalist, and but more independent movies. And when we were a kid, we were not allowed to see like things like Die Hard or the Teenage Turtles or whatever. We saw like this weird Eastern Europe stop motion animations and stuff. Of course, we were not only limited to that, but a lot of these things, and these had a huge influence of me as a graphic designer, or my imagination and stuff. So that's already one explanation. That kind of things, those weird movies from when I was a kid, and also the even the Maiden records. I want a record you look at and you can keep on looking. Of course, Maiden covers are full of details. Ours are like, it's very graphic. It's mainly one image, one color, totally different, but still what I was looking for in the details from Maiden covers, I try to put in one image, like just how you call it, activating someone his imagination. What could this be, or what reason can it behind it and stuff. Um, and also I think, but that's something very, for marketeers. If you have one color with one image, it's something you see. It attracts attention. So that's also something. So that's because I'm losing myself in my explanation and forgetting your question, I think.
Oh, no, you actually no, you answered it exactly the way I was that
Yeah.
I wanted. That's great. Thank you. So I guess the next thing I kind of want to ask is, it's been a long period of time between the last full length and this full length. It's been about 4 years, it looks like.
Yeah.
What has been going on within those 4 years that took so long for the next record to come?
Um, I think we have this 3-year period between for writing something. Of course, we do other stuff. We do gigs, and sometimes there's a collaboration or a split album in between. So that explains why it takes, for example, 3 years. Now it's more, almost 5, just because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We intended the album was ready, I think almost more than, it was ready 2 years ago, and in the end of 2019, and we wanted to go to the studio early, last year,
Okay.
and it was March, and then you know what happened. So we postponed everything to summer, and we were lucky there was this little period of a couple of weeks that we were allowed to be
Nice.
together in a studio. So many people now say, then it was released this year, and they say, oh, 2016, now 2021, it's 5 years. Why 5 years? But actually, it is already exists for 2 years, or 1 year and a half. But we are slow. We're, there's no pressure. We're all in our 40s or and 30, early 40, and most people in the band played in bands before. The bass player played in the Plague of Gentlemen, played in the US, did huge tours. We have kids stuff, so there's no pressure. But that makes, I think, also why this band keeps on going. We're still with the same people from 2005. There was never a lineup. And because just our ambition is to make music for ourselves, and we don't care about external things. Well, if you're young or if you have a big ambition, to make your band work maybe professionally, yeah, I think that must be awful. I think. Well, everything when we feel, no, we don't like it, then we don't do it. So
That makes sense. Like, and I'm very much the same way. Like, uh, I may record a record, and then 3 years later, 5 years later, make another one. It's when it feels right. So I just was kind
yeah,
of wondering. It seems like there was always a couple year period, but that was a good answer on the reason why that's there, and
yeah,
why this one was longer. So I always ask this question, and I would love to really get the feedback from you too. Uh, so let's say you're in that record shop like we're talking about,
yeah.
and somebody picks up your record for the very first time and they look at it and they're like, "Have you heard this before? What does this sound like?" How would you explain your band to someone that's never heard it, but they just picked it up because, again, the album cover?
Um, that's hard. I think if I really want to describe how it sounds like, of course I can start, name tag bands. That's the easiest thing. If I want to describe it, how do you say this, metaphorically or something? Oh, that's something else. Of course, if I would name tag even the last one, I could say, the usual suspects if you're into this more primitive kind of music. Uh, and then I could say mention some lesser known bands but if I try to describe it like more with a metaphor, I would say, you're in a plane, you're doing a free fall, and during the free fall, maybe you have a psychedelic dream or something, but you survive. I forgot to say, you don't have a parachute. That's also something.
Awesome.
Or something like
Yeah.
eruption of a volcano. It's dark, but it's not we're not an evil band. That's something from, we're beyond this. Of course, we grew up with it, and I'm interested in all this kind of stuff, but we're not an evil band. Totally not. People also sometimes describe us as it's so depressive and whatever, and I understand why people say it, but that's the least of our intention, the least of it. I totally oppose those kind of depressive doom black metal bands, and it's no, it's yeah, of course I understand why they say it, but that's not our intention. It just come out this way.
So I don't hear the depressive side of it all. It's more of a kind of cathartic release, if anything.
Yeah,
Like when I listen to it, after I'm done listening to your music, I feel like a weight left me. Not like that you've added depression to me.
yeah,
So no, that's very cool. So I want to kind of go into a bit of the your live performances.
yeah.
Uh, so how would you say album versus live differs? Like, what would be the major difference that if someone listens to a record and sees you live, they would get?
One of our intentions is to try to sound or to match the sound of the rehearsal, the record, or in the studio and the live. Like try to come as close as possible, because I think it's really more earnest, there are no tricks. There are many bands who do tricks in the studio, and then you see them live and it's totally different sometimes in a positive ways, but mostly it's like, oh man, it was just fake. You can't repeat what you did in the studio yourself. But also the other way, like in the rehearsal room, there's a special atmosphere, but to recapture or to reenact this in a studio is really hard because it's more super not this spontaneous in a studio. That's why we also record live and as less takes as possible. Like this album, I think maximum two takes per song, and that's it. And shit, I forgot the question again.
Oh yes, it was just basically live versus record. What's the difference is? What do you think? What does someone get on the record versus live?
Well, I think we're still much rawer live. Sometimes people describe us as a grindcore band live, like a black metal grindcore band. And I understand why, because it's still rawer. Why? Because when you're in the studio, the guy we record with is another guy than our two sound engineers. We have two. And also it's a different room. It's really hard and maybe impossible to have a similar sound or something. There's so many factors that are different, but I think the energy, I think it's the same, or we try to have the same energy. Um, and when I was trying to describe this, I realized when saying trying to match the sound of the studio and rehearsal and live as close as possible, I realized actually that's not really possible because there's so many factors. So it's all about the energy and what I said, like trying to be not earnest, how not fake. Like this is how we sound. This is this, no tricks.
No, there's a true sound there.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about the rhythm section because normally in this kind of music it gets lost, but with your band, like the bass and the drums almost seem like without that there would be no band. And what I mean by that is the bass plays intricate guitar lines all the time. The drummer kind of plays off the guitar, the drums, and I feel at times he plays off the vocals too. And I know, like you even said that, like the vocals are written afterwards, but you can hear it like where there's layers. So like when you're writing music, it almost has that very, and I know this is kind of generic, but it almost has like that old school punk feel where like the bass player kind of without that you wouldn't have a band. Like all great punk rock bands have a great bass player. Like that's just what they have. Um, and you guys are the same way. When you write music, is it very bass focused or very rhythm section focused a lot of times?
Um, when we're writing, like I said before, the guitar player and the drummer write the basics
Okay.
or the fundamentals of a song, which can totally be teared apart during, when the bass player and me enter. But I think um, we're playing together with these four people since 2005. But when we started, actually the drummer was a keyboard player. He wasn't a real uh, seasoned drummer or something. It was just us people because we liked each other, have the same mindset, coming together. And but during all those years, I think he didn't follow lessons or courses, and we had limitations like me as a singer and stuff, but we we grew together, and that explains a lot. Like now he's a wonderful drummer, and we couldn't imagine someone else fitting in
Sure.
because they didn't make this evolution. And so they start together, the guitar player and the drummer. They know each other as kids and have been doing this since, when they were 8 or 10 or I don't know how long. And you know, it's like it's glue. And when mostly the bass player joins, the good thing is that it's like he only has to hear something once and he's with it and he can do stuff, but then he has this fundament during rehearsing and composing the song. He adds stuff like a painter does, and you know, just pointing things and changing things. And I think that's a kind of an answer. Also, he's a huge metal fan and metal bass player. He was originally even a guitar player, but he has so many other influences like 70s rock, psychedelic rock. And I have to say, maybe I'm wrong, but bass in a metal band is like, you know, Cinderella, or how is she called, like the stepsister,
Yeah.
like pushed aside.
Yeah.
While in these bands from the 70s or those punk bands, like you're saying, it's very important. And that's in his veins, in his, you know, his natural way of playing, like um and he pushes this forward, which makes it really really interesting.
Yeah. No, absolutely cool. Very, very awesome. So you could just tell him from me, like, it's one of the reasons that I really dug your records because the bass lines are really interesting, and it
Mhm.
just it when I get to hear that, I started as a bass player at 16, so like that kind of means the world to me. Like when I hear a really interesting bass line and things
Yeah.
like that. Um, cool. So I guess the next thing I only got a couple more things, then we're gonna wrap up. But the next thing I kind of want to ask is there anything that you wouldn't record for Alkerdeel? Like, is there a certain style? Is there a certain sound that's off limits that you just think wouldn't work for the band?
Hmm. We- I can't see us playing reggae music or something. uh,
All
I don't know.
right.
Maybe within 15 years or something. Never say never. But what we're saying sometimes is like, I don't know the name from this kind of guitar playing, but um, we play quite open. But you have
Yeah.
these riffs which are like limited, like the more trashy Metallica way kind of like da-da-da, 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 something like this. When the guitar player starts doing this, it's like, nope, don't do that, Vito. No, don't do this. So, well, even though I've been trying to push, not that I'm the band leader, but as a vocalist, I'm listening the whole time, and I like music, have many influences. I mostly suggest to do things, and it would be awesome to have some trash in it once. But at the same time, I mostly hate the kind of riffing like most band does.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say the tremolo picking is probably not gonna work very well for you at all.
what's tremolo picking? Is that the limited kind of riffing
Yeah.
or?
So
Yeah,
so so, so that's like the really short burst, like
yeah,
yeah.
like the gent kind of, or
Yeah, exactly.
the Meshuggah. Although I can appreciate a little of Meshuggah because a friend of me is a huge fan and he pushed it, and I try. I understand why he likes it, but I don't think it will ever be an influence in the band.
Awesome. No, and that's great. So the last question I have is the same question I ask every artist, and I just always love to see what the interpretation will be. Typically, it's a really strange moment. So, but let's say Slonk's just done. Nobody in the world has heard. Okay, you can hand your record to any artist, living, dead, band, I don't care, and you have to pick a band that you want to rework it in their image? Like, what band would you want to rework Slonk?
Oh, that's a nice question. Um, Damn, I have to. I have some ideas already.
That's fine.
I don't want to do the obvious things. I'm already thinking not to have like a metal band or something, because
Sure.
I'm already. I like this these 70s African jazz bands like Mulatu Astatke or Mahmoud Ahmed. You know them?
I know a bit of it. Yes.
Yeah, this are I don't know which of the two. You have this movie with Bill Murray called
Mhm.
Broken Flower, and
Yep.
one of the opening songs are from. It's called Ethiopic. It's the series of 9 Ethiopian jazz records for the 70s, and it must be Mulati Astatke or Mahmoud Ahmed. It's very melancholic, and I think it would be nice what they would do with it. Because I really enjoy that kind of music. It's heavy, but not heavy like in a pushy way, but like, like the heaviness of the heat of the desert that
Yeah.
comes above you, like a blanket, like that kind of heavy. But maybe they're, no, that's one of the directions, I
That's
think.
cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah, maybe,
so
maybe,
you know that's cool.
maybe one of them.
So I was gonna say, just personally for me, I'd love to hear a very kind of jazzy side to your band. Just because I think there's a lot of jazz overtones in noise, and people don't realize it. Like noise elements and jazz elements are that dissonance. So
Yeah.
if I could pick someone that I would love to hear, I don't know if you know who it is or not, but John Zorn. Like I'd
Oh,
really
John,
love to
of
hear. Yeah,
course. Yeah.
I would love to hear him be able, because he works with a lot of noise artists
Yeah.
already and a lot of heavier artists. And I think it could be a really kind of interesting interpretation of the elements that you have in that record. So
Like on what did he do? Like Naked City or something?
yeah, that's
Because
exactly what I was thinking about.
it also comes very close, actually, to those Ethiopian artists
Yeah.
in the way that John Zorn with Masada, Electric
Yeah.
Masada, he has this project called Bar Kokba. Do you know it?
I do.
Um, it's really something I recommend, Bar Kokba, and it's wait, let me think, because it's very hard in my mind now. Is the style called? It's this. Um, oh damn! It's because I'm speaking English that I sometimes can't come up with the words. Um, and I will continue speaking. The music is one half like almost free jazz, and the other half,
Okay.
it's like this old Jewish, really nice, melancholic music.
Nice.
It has a name, the style, and that's like, my mind is too chaotic now to come up with a word. But I will mail it to you.
Yeah.
And this style is very close in in melancholy and stuff, like those Ethiopian bands I was
Yeah.
referring to. So that John Zorn, it makes a bit sense. We're already in the same direction. But I'm going
Yeah.
to send it to you. I really recommend it. It's
I
really
definitely
nice.
will listen.
It's a double album. Um, Lots of stuff on it, free jazz, but also these klezmer. That was the word, klezmer.
Okay.
But not the up tempo, but the slow
Yeah.
klezmer melody lines and stuff. Really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely thank
Yeah.
you. I'll definitely check it out. That's cool. So what I normally do here is kind of give you the free reign. It's going to be your pulpit. You talk about what you want. Tell us what's up with the band. Let us know if any live shows are coming, if there's any new releases, if there's anything you're doing. Just kind of talk about it now. It's your moment.
Well, that's nice. Thank you. At this point, of course, because of the pandemic, we can do nothing. We even can come together to rehearse, but the bass player and guitar player are continuing to make music. There will be some things in the pipeline, like for autumn, that will come out, but I can't reveal too much. It's a bit dorky of me, sorry, but there will be something out in autumn or be revealed to come out. I don't know about live gigs. I don't know what the situation will be in Belgium. I really don't know. There's this show, but it's sold out next year with Vetbu and Zende, one of our biggest influences, or music we like, which I really look forward to. So people who bought a ticket, it would be awesome to see them. And maybe to end, but I should stand up from my desk, therefore, because I'm going to take something to show. One moment, you can enjoy the background.
Not a problem.
Oops. It's a bit of advertising, but this is fresh from the press. It's a book from Oudergebroed, which is a Dutch online magazine, and they exist for 10 years. And for the occasion, we took the most interesting interviews out of it and published it as a book. But we translated everything in English. So it's really interesting from people from abroad, from the who speak English. And I did the design, so it's today the first time I have it in my hands. It's fresh from the printing office, and some bands that are inside are, for example, Javel from Norway. There's this artist Ilya Tamu who is from the US. Forbidden Temple, which is a very underground band. Macabre Omen from Greece. Mispirming from Iceland. Lots of different bands. So recommended in these periods. Read a lot.
Nice. Well, again, Jeroen, thank you so very much for doing this. We appreciate you jumping on and doing this today with me. And I will be supporting your band for many, many years to come because I really do enjoy the last couple records that I heard. Other than that, if you ever do get to play live, come to the US, let me know. I will be the first one there, hanging out, watching the show, and we'll have a beer and we'll talk about crazy free jazz and music that probably that nobody else likes but you or I. So that's pretty interesting. But other than that,
nice.
thank you so much again. And again, Clint from the Doorway too, hanging out with Jeroen from Alkerdeel. And thanks again, and see you.
Thank you, Clint. Really appreciate it for the time and energy you put on us. And like you said, it would be awesome to visit to US ones and hang out at the bar, share some beers. My pleasure. Okay.
You have a great night.
Have a good day. Bye.